don't take too much to break now. I lost the label with info, telling me how much I should take now, before my final meal on death row. I was my own. I was my own. I was my own. Like a special brand of the product would do the job better than this one. Is that any way to conduct? I would laugh, but I tell you that you missed one. I was my own. I was my own. I was my own. I was my
Car seat headrest. Ever since early high school, this has been a band that has consumed my life in one way or another. I remember finding Beach Life and Death and listening to it over and over and over again until I had the courage to listen to the rest of Twin Fantasy. It obviously starts off with My Boy, and then I listened to Beach Life and Death one more time, and then I stopped for a while, and then started again. I should start this video off by saying Twin Fantasy is not a good album, and by that I mean Twin Fantasy is no longer an album I enjoy. And that is a personal take of mine. I think most people that have been listening to Car Seat Headrest for a while can agree with this. Maybe not calling it bad, but just calling it not their best. I remember there was one other person in my school that I knew for a fact listened to Car Seat Headrest, and it was an upperclassman whose name will not be said. My friend Metzley was in a band class with this kid, so one day after practice, she put me on the phone with him, and he asked me, "What's your favorite Car Seat Headrest album?" And I said, Twin Fantasy. The tone of his voice switched because he knew at that moment I was a poser. He asked me, "Do you like any other ones?" And I said, I like that one. It's like Teens of something. And that was probably the worst thing I could have said, because the horror in his voice when he said Teens of Denial or Teens of Style, I just said, I don't know. From that point on, I kind of had to listen to the other records because I didn't want to be embarrassed like that again. And in retrospect, I'm glad I did. Teens of Denial is one of my favorites. It's not my number one, that will always be Nervous Young Man, but it's much more mature and the songs feel just like much better. And I think lots of Car Seat Headrest fans do this thing where they are very obsessed with one record at a time, and they have a hard time listening to other records after relentlessly listening to that one record. And that's pretty much what I did with Twin Fantasy. Now, I'm one of those people where Twin Fantasy came out in 2018, and that was around the time I entered my freshman year of high school, and so that was the version I fell in love with first. It took me years to listen to the 2011 version in full, mainly because I had watched YouTube videos talking about all the minutia of the 2011 version and the 2018 version, and I wasn't ready to give up some of my favorite lyrics from the 2018 version. But if you're ever tired of listening to one version over the other, then I recommend you give it a try. And if you're new to Car Seat, and I mean like new as in like listening within this year or last year, I urge you to listen to the older versions as well as the newer version. I know this sounds kind of gatekeepy, but it's just something I feel like everyone should do. When you bring up this album to people, they always ask, and I mean always, which album you prefer. And if I'm to interject, I like 2018 over 2011. It's just more of a sentimental reason for me than anything. If you ever see those memes of people talking about albums that they'll be listening to in their older age that they listen to now, I feel like lots of depressed youth will have this album in there. And I can sort of agree. This is one of the most important albums to me ever. It's this and Come In by Weather Day, along with Bleach by Nirvana and Speaking in Tongues by Talking Heads. Those are my holy grails. And it's weird the way that certain albums mold the way your brain works. Car Seat Headrest taught me to write songs that are ultra specific, because they mean more to people who really listen. One of my favorite lyrics of all time is,
Last Friday I took acid and mushrooms. I did not transcend. I felt like a walking piece of shit in a stupid looking jacket.
I wrote this down in my math notebook, and at the end of every week, we had to turn in the notebooks, and my teacher saw that and had to talk to me about it. She said, "Eden, this is not your diary." And I said that they were song lyrics, and she was like, "Well, what kind of music are you listening to?" My emo ass obviously replied with, "I don't know," and I walked out. Truly one of my most profound moments. Something I did that I'm not proud of is really getting obsessed over this band. I would look up car seat headrest interviews every day sometimes, trying to find more niche content of Will and any of the other members. He became sort of a celebrity to me, and I urge anyone who thinks this way to just consider that we are all human and to put yourself into Will's shoes. There are some really fucked up people in this scene who will take things too far. I was friends with this girl who was very into car seat headrest, and she made that known on her TikTok, and there was this person who really liked her content, I suppose. This person ended up messaging her, and they started talking about music and whatnot. Eventually the other person said, "I have Will Toledo's address." And that was fucking crazy, even at the time. My friend called me and was like, "I know where Will Toledo lives now." I told her not to talk to that person because that shit is just dangerous. She told me that she started to talk less and less to that person, but eventually she was added to an Instagram group chat where this person sent the address into the chat and then added Will Toledo and Andrew Katz into the group. If I remember correctly, I think Andrew said something like, "Please don't," and the other person was like, "Oh my god, you responded," or something stupid like that. I feel like I became kind of weirded out by the fan base after that. I bought tickets to go see them in my town, but they canceled, and that kind of did it for me. I got refunded my money, but it felt like I outgrew car seat headrest. I can't imagine how they must feel with all that attention, and I don't think that they did it to themselves. I think that just the art that they were making was the cultural zeitgeist. I hope that their fan base is doing better. Ever since Madlow dropped, I kind of have checked out, but I still love the band as much as I ever do. I just don't really like the fans. I've separated the fan base from the music because even though I've talked so much shit about Twin Fantasy and the fan base up until this point, it is truly one of the best albums to come out of the 2010s. There are so many catchy lines and witty lyrics, and Will's songwriting, even at that young age, was incredibly detailed and spoke to a lot of people. But I just personally cannot listen to that album anymore.